Travelling, a personal perspective. So when I'm asked about travelling, I say to my students, have a look at the playlist that's got all my photographs, the stories that are there. But still, they want a summary, my point of view. So I have to say, the caveats. Firstly, lots of people do things different ways. It was a big thing during my teens and 20s for people to buy a rail car and go interrailing around Europe and other places, staying at youth hostels in the centre of towns. And that's quite great. That's acceptable. That's what some people did. It wasn't for me. It was too planned. Too many timetables and stuff. It wasn't freewheeling. I just liked going when I felt like going and stopping and changing direction. So I'm not with a plan, not with anyone else, although me and Nina did get as far as hitchhiking right across Europe and then getting to Pakistan. But yeah, apart from Nina and short distances with a few other people, and of course my holidays with Joe for the last 20 years, travelling has been a hitchhiking thing for me. Hitchhiking and camping. That was what I've done most of my travelling as the method. Joe, like many other people around Asia, got trains and buses and airplanes, and went and stayed for a week here and a week there, and on a beach there for a couple of weeks until you've had enough. And I think Melbourne for a month, because she enjoyed being there with the people she was with. And it wasn't me. I can't see myself doing that. So everyone's got to find their own way. And just slipped into it, really. First due to Gavin, who said, "Do you want to go climbing?" And I said, okay. I wasn't much of a climber. I was in Sheffield, right next to the peaks and the Pennines. And as I said, yeah. And so we hitchhiked. It was my first hitchhiking experience. It was great. Thank you, Gavin. And one of the things was it's always easier to hitchhike to a place from a nowhere rather than the other way around. So it was very difficult. It took us quite some time to get to the Dolomites part. Dolomites? Rocks, yeah. The Dolomites in North Italy, but they were like Dolomites that we went to. And much easier to get back to Sheffield with a sign written on it. Hitchhiking is something of the past now. And that's the thing. The places I went to, they no longer exist. My favourite place to travel to? Pakistan, 1989. Because the people were so friendly, they were so pro-Brits. There's me, Nina, and the Australian guy who came along for most of our tour around Pakistan. We were met by friendliness when we got off a train, because in Asia, trains, very rarely hitchhiking, although we did hitchhike down the Karakoram highway. So there were parts. And yeah, we got off a train at Kotdiji, the tourist office in Karachi, which consisted of one man, one chair, one table, 2 posters, and some photographs. And he obviously had paid money to get this job, and he didn't know what his job was about. He didn't really have any experience. I think we were the first tourists that ever come into his tourist office. And we looked through his photographs, and I said, there, I want to go to that one. That castle looks brilliant. Better than any castle I've ever been to. And castles were my thing. And so he said, oh yeah, Kotdiji. So we asked the station masters in Karachi how to get to Kotdiji, and yeah, we made our way there via other places. And yeah, so we got off the train and we went to the castle. And it was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was already feeling a little bit twingly about this because it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and we're not sure. And I feel responsible for other people. That's the reason why most of my travelling has been without other people. And I got to the castle, closed. And there was a guy sitting there. I asked him, when's the castle open? He said, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. till 2. Okay, great. Is there a hotel here? No. Is there a train going back to, I think it was Multan was the closest city. He said, no. Okay. Is there a restaurant, a cafe? Because many times when there's no hotel, I just go and buy a meal and stay in the cafe or restaurant and go to sleep. So I did that a couple of times in Burma. And I just sleep on the table, so that's fine. You know? I thought, oh, this was my time when I didn't have a tent with me. We did have through Europe. We must have dropped it somewhere along the way. Oh no, we did. Yes. But it was only a 2-person tent, so we had the Aussie with us. And on the ground, it looked very nice to sleep on. You don't want to sleep near a village in a tent because the local kids will be interested in what's this tent thing, and they'll throw stones at it, and you'll get wake up. Not nice. And yeah, that's happened one time on the Karakoram Highway. And I looked around, and there was a police car outside a big house. So we went there, knocked on the door, and said, "Hello, we come to see your castle, but there's no hotel." And they let us stay. Marvellous people. We stayed 3 or 4 days. Poor Nina, she wanted to be where everyone was speaking English, and the fun was and the laughter. And they kept shuffling her off to where the ladies were, because the Pakistani gentlemen weren't comfortable with a lady being there while we were talking, laughing, joking. It's all right when they were driving us around in cars to go and see the sights around there, but they weren't very comfortable about us with a female there. And so poor Nina sat with the girls and they didn't know much English. And she wasn't happy. When Nina wasn't happy, everybody gets to know about it. Anyway, it lasted 2-3 days. I must contact her and ask her whether it was 2 or 3. I think she'd know. So yeah, we got such marvellous reception from the people. And Pakistan was fantastic. And so was Kashmir. So yeah, I spent some time with Gavin, and one of my friends was going off somewhere for some summer job, and I thought, yeah, I should do that. And I applied, and it was in Norway. And I thought, yeah, there's a farm in Norway, I'll go there. And I sent all the applications off, and I gave them my address, which was my address in Sheffield. And of course, at the end of term, I'm off from Sheffield. I'm now in Kent, Millstone, my parents' place. So I never received a letter saying, oh, yes, come over, the job's there. So I thought, oh, those guys have got my 30 quid. I'm going to go and get it. Well, I had nothing else to do. So taking the ferry into Netherlands, and then trains. I ended up in Bremen. And at that point, I thought, yes, now I put my thumb on the road. And so I hitchhiked. And so from Bremen, I made it to the port. Denmark. Oh yes, Denmark, and then across to Sweden, then up through Sweden. I like Malmo. Roskilde was in the north of Denmark. Very nice. I didn't spend much time in Copenhagen. Must go back there, just to have a look around. And I finally ended up in Oslo and went to this address of this office. And they said, "Oh, you're late. You're like 10 days late." And I said, "Hey, yeah, I didn't get your letter." And they said, "There's your address." It's like, "Oh, my mistake. Sorry about that." They said, "Yeah, you're 10 days late. You're meant to be up north at this farm." So I hitched there. So a couple more days late. And they didn't mind. I just turned up and they said, "We've got to move all these rocks off this field because we're turning this field of rocks into a dairy farm." And so I got to drive the tractor. It was brilliant. They didn't ask me if I could drive a tractor. They just said, "There's tractor keys. Get on with it." Brilliant. And, what was the name of the guy there? So as I arrived, for a couple of days, there was somebody else there as well, a Norwegian guy. And we had our chocolate party. Can't remember his name. And it was great. I enjoyed it. I don't think I stayed the whole summer. After about 3 weeks, I was getting bored. Climbed up the local mountain. I went to a goat farm at one point, chasing round a field after some naked ass. It was all good fun. And yeah, so that was my first experience. I hitchhiked back via Bergen and then got the ferry to Newcastle, and from Newcastle hitchhiked down, and that was it. I got the bug. And so every summer while I was a student, and then also when I was a teacher, because as a young teacher you can get summer jobs picking fruit in Australia or something, and it wasn't me. And so it didn't appeal. I spent a lot of my summers going to Ireland, because hitchhiking around Ireland was just so good, just so easy. And I think there was something in the law that said you could put your tent anywhere, if it's a field or trees or whatever. One time I hopped over a fence. I thought, "Oh, there's a good place to put a tent." So I did. And in the morning, woke up, had a look around, and thought, "Oh, this grass, it looks a little bit tended. It doesn't look like a cow field. I think I'm in somebody's garden. A big garden, like a big posh house garden. I'll just hop over the fence again." As I did it, the gardener turned up and it was like, "Hello, Miss Police. What are you doing?" I said, "I just camped on that grassy bit there. I just camped there overnight with my tent." I showed him my tent, and he went, "Okay," and then left. That happened quite a few times. Where I just got away with things because people just thought, "Okay, that's beyond my jurisdiction. I don't know what to do with people who just camp in someone's garden." Don't think they had paperwork for that. Just in Austria, just outside of Vienna. Walked through the town because I didn't have enough money to buy anything in the town or stay in the town. So I'd hitchhike to a town and then have to walk right across it and then get to the road going out of town, hitchhike out again. And as I'm going through, it was getting dark, so I thought, I've got to the edge of town. There's a wooded area, and I can camp in there. No problem, I'll be away from the path enough so no one could see my tent. What I hadn't realised was there were two paths, and I'd camped quite close to the second one. And so I got woken up by the Austrian police. And they asked me what I was doing. And I said, "Hello, I'm hitchhiking. I'm heading down to Hungary." They went, "Okay." And so I did. And any excuse. Fell a bit in love. Because every love is different. You can't say, "Oh, I was more in love with one person than another." No, every love is different. They don't compare. You can't compare them. More important loves, less important loves. Fell in love in Hong Kong. And the lady, despite that, she had a job teaching English in Bratislava. And so I was a bit heartbroken. I thought I'd go and see her in Bratislava. So flew into London and got to Bratislava by going from Newcastle to Bremen and hitchhiking through Norway and Sweden, and then got a Estonia first, Lithuania, then Estonia, then Lithuania, then Latvia, then Poland, then Slovakia, then Hungary, and hitchhiked round that way, and it was fab. Very friendly people, great ice cream in Hungary, and of course many until I was in my 30s I was doing this, so 10 years every summer, and I stopped because I got a lift from someone who was half my age. So I stopped when I was 36. He was 18, driving a red open-top car. Then I'd hitchhiked up and down from Sheffield to Bournemouth and back again many times. London to Sheffield, London to Bournemouth. I'd done a lot of hitchhiking out of Bournemouth. Again, fell in love. Girl named Sue. And it didn't work. That's why I left the country. And left the country, I had, what was the name of the place? So there was a travel agent for travellers in London, and they sold me a ticket from London to New York, and from Los Angeles to New Zealand, and New Zealand to Australia, and Australia to Hong Kong, and I thought I'd get the train back. And that was brilliant. It cost me half the money I had. And so I was hitchhiking and camping again, because half my money's blown. So I started off in New York, decided not to hitchhike out of there. Got bus to Boston, and then ferry up into Nova Scotia. I didn't actually get to see Halifax. I don't know, somehow I missed that one. And I hitchhiked round Nova Scotia. Are they dangerous? Yes, there are. Several times I got picked up, 3 times, by the same guy from Bournemouth heading towards London. He always dropped me off just outside of Southampton, and he had the same line each time. He obviously didn't recognise me or remember me, and so he'd go through his spiel about being lonely and stuff, and am I lonely? And I said no, and he obviously repressed, homosexual, and I wasn't interested, so he'd drop me off. At least I got part of my way. Dropped me off at the service station, turn around, go back. They gave me 3 lifts. Oh, and from Doncaster going south, the A1M, twice I got the same fella, another repressed gay guy. Similar thing, twice. So I stopped doing that route. Yeah, it was off-putting. I didn't feel sad for these people. But yeah, a similar thing in, it was dark. And I had the sea to my right and a cliff to my left, and walking along the road and trying to find somewhere to camp wasn't an option, so I did something that I don't usually do. I was hitchhiking in the dark. I think possibly the only time I did. And again, same kind of fella picked me up, but he was more scary. And he said, I could camp in his back garden. And so but I was getting weird feelings about it. And so knocked on the door. I said, can I use your loo before I go to sleep? And he said, yeah, I'll see you before you go to sleep. And I thought, okay. I used the loo, but it was all broken up. All the porcelain was broken, and I had a scrappy little horrible dog. I don't know, I got into my sleeping bag and I thought, no, I'm not sleeping here, I can't sleep here. So, dark. Got all my stuff together and struck my tent, packed it all up and legged it. Camped in someone else's garden down the road, about 20 minutes down the hill. Yeah, I didn't sleep so easy. That was off-putting. But yeah, so I started Canada, and I thought, I want to get to LA. I thought Canada would be more friendly than the US for hitchhiking, you know, guns and all that. Apparently the Canadians have as many guns as Americans, they just don't use them on each other. And so I just started. I got through New Brunswick, and that was okay. I got to the Niagara Falls. I hitchhiked there, and now I'm at Niagara Falls. It's getting dark. I thought, oh, where am I going to put my tent? Oh, there's a road down there, just near the falls. I'll go down there, see what I can find. So I just wandered down there, wondering if someone's going to shout at me and tell me not to go down. There was no barrier saying you can't go down here, so I just went down. And there was a flat piece of ground, and like a big garage door. And it was looking towards the American Falls. I thought that was all of Niagara Falls at the time, because I've not planned ahead. I love to see things without knowing they're going to be there. My favourite thing, second favourite, in India was when me and Michelle, one of the times, with trains we were, so it was pretty safe when we had hotels. It was India, you can afford hotels. And actually, we slept in the same bed. Anyway, that was all a bit weird. But anyway, we were friends and we still are. And yeah, because there was a past thing about that where it was also weird. So yeah, Niagara Falls. Oh yeah, about seeing things without planning. And we just Mumbai, and we thought, let's go around town. It was dark and it's India, but we felt confident. It was two of us, so that's always better for safety. And we just saw this sparkling gem of a building down the road. And we walked towards it, absolutely agog. We walked around it going, what is this place? And we got in through one of the side doors, and we're walking around going, I don't know what this is, all the lights. It's like Indian slums outside, and this jewel of a building, and it was the Taj Mahal Hotel. And it was just, that shock was wonderful. If we'd have gone looking for it, looking through a guidebook of some kind, and gone, oh, okay, this picture, I want to go and see here, this description. It says it's good, let's go and find it. Oh, it's over there, I'll follow the map. Oh, there it is, I'll take a photograph. No, you've got no excitement. Seeing something without knowing what to expect, that's brilliant. The other, okay, number one of my best experiences, that one was third, it was the actual Taj Mahal. And again, not having a guidebook really helped, because I got there late, and there was some green, and it was outside the hotel. I asked the hotel, can I stay here? And they said, yes, camp on the grass. This is when Saddam Hussein had just invaded Kuwait. It was part of my Pakistan trip. So, yeah, me and Nina hitchhiked across Europe. This was 89. So we hitchhiked across Eastern Germany, that gap to get to Berlin. Brilliant, how exciting was that? And we got to get a little bit of the wall before it went down a couple of months later. And we got to walk around East Berlin after about an hour and a half being in a bad B-movie, a scary B-movie, lots of guns and stuff, and dystopian future kind of place. We went back across Checkpoint Charlie, we've had enough. And we got all the way to Berlin, we realised, without changing any currency, because we'd hitchhiked all the way, camped all the way, and we'd never changed currency, all the way through Netherlands, Germany, all the way to Berlin, before we actually had to spend money on something. It was brilliant. Yeah, and Taj Mahal, I got in there, and it was quite late, and all the people left. And so I thought, oh, I've only just arrived, they can chuck me out, I'm going to just stay. And so I did. And an hour went by, maybe a couple of hours went by. I didn't have a watch. I didn't know what the time was. This was before mobile phones. And it was just wonderful, just sitting there, watching the light change as it got dark, and the mist on the Taj Mahal, my favourite ever photograph, using a 110 camera. This was a tiny little camera, very fuzzy pictures, but fuzzy really worked with the Taj Mahal as the mist came in. It's just my favourite photograph ever. It's in my playlists of my photographs, my montage playlist. And yeah, and I thought, oh, hold on. I walked in there and I walked around, I walked out again. I thought, oh, I'm probably locked in now. There's been no one here for like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I've been on my own with the Taj Mahal. Yes, it was useful that Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait because there were no American tourists around, so the traveller types all left because they all had the guidebook, Lonely Planet guidebook. They all left, and so I thought I won't climb over a fence. I'll go to the main gate and I'll climb over the main gate. And if a policeman comes, I'll say I got locked in. And so I went to the main gate, it's still open. And I went to the tickets office and I said, "What time do you close?" And they said, "Oh, we're closing in 20 minutes." And I said, "But everybody left hours ago. Why did they all leave?" And he said, "Oh, they've all gone for their tea." And I thought, no, that can't be the reason why. That can't be right. And I found out later that the Lonely Planet says the closing time was when everybody left. It got the closing time wrong. And so it was brilliant. Thank you, Lonely Planet. My first fabulous thing in India was Dal Lake up in Kashmir. I went skiing up there because there was snow. And someone told me they were skiing. I don't know. So I've started, I came across the border from Pakistan. Nina had flown home because she ran out of money. And yeah, I said, £1,000, we need £1,000. And she said, yeah, I've got £1,000, which I don't think she had. I think she only had like about 600 because she ran out of money. And then I came across the border and I loved the Golden Temple in Amritsar. Wonderful. In the Punjab, the Sikh Golden Temple. Fantastic. And you could stay there for free. You can't go and do the things I've done because things have changed and probably you can't stay there. I don't know, maybe you can stay at the Golden Temple still. And so, yeah, it's in a dorm room with a bunch of people. That was unusual for me. Although I had that in Lahore, in Pakistan. I really liked Lahore. And yeah, and so I asked in Amritsar if there's skiing in Kashmir, and they said yeah. And so I went north, trains and buses, and I got to Jammu or Srinagar, and I asked, is there skiing in Kashmir? They said no. And so I'm still going. I've got this far. So I went up to the town. Where the ski fields are, and I asked the tourist information, is there skiing up there? And they said yes. And I thought, okay, yeah, I'm getting yeses and no's, so anyway, I'm nearly there now. And I went to the ski fields, and I knocked on this big hut, and there was like half a dozen guys there eating dinner. And I said, is there skiing? And they looked on another, and they went, yeah, yes. And so I was the only person skiing that winter. And so like 6 or 7 days, I'd go down the powder, and they put on the drag lifts, but they wouldn't get the cable car going just for one tourist, but the drag lifts. And so I had like 3 or 4 drag lifts, 3, and I was just using them, just going up, coming down, powder. It was wonderful. And then one day, about 20 guys with skis turned up. And I asked them what they're doing, and they were all walking up sideways, up the ski slopes that I'd been enjoying the powder on. And they said, "Oh, we've got to squash the wave, the route for skiing down." And I said, "No, don't do that. I'm the only person here that's skiing, and I don't want the flatness. I like the powder. It's great. You just put your skis together, and whoosh, snow everywhere, and you get to the bottom. It's brilliant. None of this making a V thing and going down sideways and sideways and sideways. Just whoosh straight down, powder everywhere. Brilliant. Best skiing. Spoiled skiing for me, because I never got anything so good since then in Korea and Japan. And but they said this is our job, so they did it. So that day, my last day, I thought, okay, I'll ski down into the town, follow the road, and cross-country bits down the town, and then I'll get the bus back up. So that sounded like a good plan. Didn't ratify that plan with anybody. And as I'm skiing down, of course, there was army moving around, and I thought, I'm skiing through the trees, and there's a whole bunch of trigger-happy army guys with their Lee Enfield 1914 guns, First World War guns. Yeah, I stayed on the road, so I skied down the road. I might scratch the skis up. And that's the reason I thought, oh no, I've scratched the skis up. They're going to want me to pay for these. So I gave them back. When I left the next day, nothing was said. But I thought, that's ski slopes done. I've done the only cross country I wanted to do. It was fun, a bit scary. Too many army guys heading toward the border with Pakistan. I'm done, I'm out of here. So that was good. And yes, I hitchhiked across Canada, and at one point I hitchhiked with one lift from Winnipeg to Calgary. Doesn't look very far on the map, but that's 2 time changes. I had to change my clock. I had a little digital clock. I had to change my clock twice as I went along there. And yeah, guy, big truck, opened his door, massive load of Coke. And I went, "Oh, you got loads of Coke?" And he went, "Yeah, I'm drinking one every 100 miles. And I looked and thought, wow, you're going a long way. And so that's what we did. And we hitched across the prairies, all in one go. And the prairies are amazing. It's like going over a billiard ball. They'd just be surrounded by grass, but the horizon's not very far away because everything's flat. No mountains, no hills, no buildings. And so the horizon is, I don't know, 5, 6 kilometres away. And so it's like going over a billiard ball. And then one tree would come into view and then go behind you. And then one building would come into view and then go behind you. Weird, crazy place. And yeah, it took me all the way to Calgary. Brilliant, one lift. And I arrived just as when I woke up the next morning, wandered down the hill, and the Stampede was on. The last day of the Stampede was fantastic. Calgary Stampede, brilliant. Guys in 10-gallon hats and whooplas and cows going mad and people sitting on the back of bulls, and it was brilliant, great fun. I was such lucky with my timing. And then, yeah, I was going too fast. I was going to get to LA too soon. So I got as far as Jasper and Banff, and that was quite nice. Stayed with somebody overnight. They said, "Do you want some English bacon?" No, Canadian bacon, English muffins. I'd never heard of them before. And the son was quite perturbed by this. He says, "How can you be English and you don't know about English muffins?" I said, "We don't have them in England." And Canadians don't have bacon called Canadian bacon by Americans. People do this a lot, I found out. And so I was going too fast. So I thought, okay, I've had it with trees. New Brunswick, most of Ontario, it was just all the same type of tree. All planted, very boring, not very diverse ecology because somebody's rooted up all the trees. But it's like part of the great Canadian clearance thing, I don't know, to pay off their debts. Anyway, it all looked the same. All the same height. Apart from one field of strawberries. it wasn't softies filled with strawberries. No, there were strawberries. They were wild strawberries, and it was just thousands of them. I ate maybe a couple of hundred, and that was enough for breakfast and lunch. And so that was my favourite fruit thing that happened. And so I got across, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to Alaska then, because my knowledge of the map was that Canada was green and Alaska was white. So I go up there, there's less trees. I thought. I liked Dawson City. Dawson City was the only place I thought, oh, I could live here. But then I realised in the summer. And I was so lucky. Got out my tent, middle of the night. I looked up at the sky, and there was all this weird green stuff going on. I was like, oh, what is that? There must have been something in my drink. This is a hallucination. Weird green whooshy sky swirling around. It was the aurora. So I hadn't been, my eyes were opened and stunned. I was shocked because I didn't know what it was. And I'm really pleased, because if I'd have gone looking for this, it's very rare that people get to see a good view of it. Lots of people try again and again to see the auroras and see nothing. And B, you haven't got the surprise, the wonder of seeing something that you were trying to see. If you expect it, then it won't be so wonderful. And so I got to Alaska, I got to Anchorage. I went down to see some icebergs on a lake. So I thought, what do you do with the lake? We'll walk around it. So I walked around it with all my rucksack and stuff. Didn't tell anybody. Didn't ask whether this is a good idea to walk around the lake. And of course, this is not a safe thing to do because of all the icebergs and the breaking. And then a moose came along. I take a picture of the moose. And this was a lady moose, I think, because then I turned around and there was this huge moose right close to me, like about as far as the kitchen sink is, like just 4 meters away. And so I got this picture of this moose just looking at me. No zoom, didn't have zoom, but this huge head. Anyway, so I started talking to him, and how, I had no problem. I was just moving through and just kept walking. Because if this moose had attacked me, behind me was all the water with the icebergs in. And, I was about an hour and a half into my walk. So a third of the way around the lake. No, not a good situation. Several not good situations. And so I hiked up into it. Now where am I going to go? I'm still ahead of time. And so I went north. I thought I'd just go north as far as I can, Fairbanks. And in Fairbanks I found stuffed in a hedge. And so I was walking up, because I'm always going to the same places other people go to hitchhike. There was this like beekeeper's hat thing. I thought, well, I'll have that, might be useful. And there was also a blow-up, a bed thing, blow-up one. I thought, well, I'll have that might be useful. Luck. And so, it was, because in the tundra, it's tiny little willow trees. And I got a lift up there with the caribou hunters, because they drive up, 3 of them in the van, and they went, we're going up, but we'll come back full of caribou, so, we won't be able to give you a lift back, but we're going up empty. So you can see in the back. And at night, they said, let's go shoot gun. And I said, okay. So after several Jack Daniels, they got out. You ever heard of Dirty Harry, the movie? And I said, yeah, I'm aware of it. I haven't seen it. Still haven't. And they go, this is the long-nosed one. And holding this gun. And the kick on this gun, I braced myself. I'm a physics teacher. I knew I pulled the trigger. Boom. Yes, you could put a big hole in a building with this gun. But the best bet is to be standing inside it, because that way you'd hit the building, because there was such a kick from it. We couldn't hit this rock, which was just like 5 meters away. Because, actually probably good, because it might have pinged off and hurt one of us. But anyway, yeah, the kick on it just made it a pointless weapon. Magnum. And yeah, so I got all the way to Prudhoe Bay. I did meet some guys that actually got into Prudhoe Bay. They hitchhiked with somebody who worked there, they were telling me. But I just got to the gate and I was like, okay, this is a big fenced off thing. There's a gate, there's a guard there. I don't think I should go and talk to him. And I'm pleased I didn't, because I'm walking back. It took me about a week of walking, and then I got lucky. A university guy picked me up. And yeah, as I'm walking, this car swerves across the road, opened my window. I said, hello. And he said, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm heading south. I hitchhiked, I'm walking back. And they said, it's hundreds of miles. And I said, yeah, you know, I might get a lift or something. And they said, oh, all right. And they drove off. And I thought, that was nice. Okay. So I carried on, caribou, bouncing around. Oh, mosquitoes. That's why I was pleased I got this net head thing. Mosquitoes, like clouds of them as you get out of the tent some days when there wasn't enough wind. And it makes the caribou go mad. And the caribou hunters said, yeah. I said, oh, you're going to be finished to fill up the van within like just a couple of hours. And they went, no, don't use guns, use bows and arrows. And we pick up rubbish. I said, use bows and arrows? Yeah, because we're up here for like 2 weeks. We don't want to just fill up the van and drive back. That would be boring. So no, we use bows and arrows. So walking around trying to find the stupid caribous, because only the stupid ones would let you get close enough to use your bow and arrow to get a kill. They don't want to lose their arrows, and if you don't kill it, that's a bad thing for your hunters. You must score a kill, so you have to hit it in the heart. You have to know they're close enough to do that. It's only the stupid caribous they get. And the stupid ones also eat plastic bags and plastic yellow strips. And so, yeah, it changed my view of hunters. Hunters look after the environment because they want the animals to be there. And just like other animals, they don't get the clever ones. They're helping the evolution of the animals, stopping them from being stupid. It was the university that puts all the plastic around in their quadrants, and then it comes off the sticks and floats around, gets eaten by caribou and kills them. So I went kind of pro-hunter, anti-university, which was an epiphany. But good, I like epiphanies. I've had several. It's really good. If something comes along that completely changes something that you held true, now you've got to see the other side. And you go, oh, actually, the other side is bigger. It's not the 90%, 10% I thought it was. It's 80%, 20% the other way. The hunters look after the environment. You know, I wouldn't want to be a hunter. I'm a bit too yucky. But I appreciate them. They look after the environment. So yeah, another car, next day, comes along, pulls over, window comes down. Are you the English hitchhiker? I said, yeah, there's no one else around. Hundreds of miles, no one else here. I said, yeah. And they went, here. And there was a paper bag. And they drove off. Oh, okay, paper bag. He said, look, this is like, it was chocolate bars and sweets and sandwiches and all sorts, because the guys at Prudhoe Bay can have as much as they can eat. No alcohol's allowed, but as much as they can eat. And they talked about me, because, you know, not much else changes. They talked about this bad Englishman walking his way back to Fairbanks, across the Bruce, getting towards the Brooks Mountains. And yeah, they had to patrol because there's the big pipeline. And there's helicopters overhead and cars on the ground. They're looking for terrorists or anybody else who wants to blow up their pipeline. And so they patrol it, looking for leaks and explosives and stuff like that. We had English people, and so they're just going their head. They were going to give me food. So I ended up back at Fairbanks with more food than I left with. Loads and loads of chocolate bars and crisps and sandwiches and fruits. Thanks, guys. Much appreciated. Lovely set of fellas. Yeah, oil workers, very friendly. How about that? Who'd guess? Yeah, and then I hitchhiked down from there to Vancouver Island. Had a little tryst in Victoria. But she'd starved herself thin. And it didn't look good. She was too thin. I think she was a large lady, and she then decided that she'd starve herself thin to make herself better looking, attract more guys, and yeah, maybe it gave her that confidence. But yeah, when you're a larger lady and you become a thinner lady, you've got a whole bunch of extra skin, and it's not nice. So I couldn't explain why, and so yeah, I stayed a night with her and left, and without explanation, which I feel, but I don't know how else I could have done that. And yeah, so then got a boat to Seattle, and then there was this bus called the Green Turtle, the Green Tortoise, I think it was called both, and I got a ticket, but they could only give me a ticket as far as Eugene. But it was, it was good being amongst people. This whole bunch of hippies and this bus where they'd taken all the seats out, and we just sat around on beanbags and stuff. And yeah, Eugene, I hitched, and I got a lift with a new hippie going to see the Grateful Dead while they were still around. And we were going to the concert. He was going to the concert. I said, yeah, great. Great. So he gave me a lift from Eugene down further down into California, and yeah, Grateful Dead concert was going on. It was so sad that he couldn't get in. He was wearing a dress. It's got the hippie thing, but almost like he'd heard about it and met many others. So, and he was drinking lots of tap water because water was good for him. And yeah, anyway, it was outside the Grateful Dead concert I liked. I was wandering around, watching all these other people that couldn't get in. Just a free festival that they'd just started to have. And it was cool. Still don't know much of Grateful Dead's music, but I went to one of their concerts, couldn't get in. And yeah. And then I went down to New Zealand, hitched around New Zealand, north and south, and to Australia. From Sydney to Melbourne, I got a bus because somebody was killing, or a lot of people were going missing on that route, so somebody was killing them. And then from Melbourne to Adelaide, up through the middle, Alice Springs, which was fantastic, really loved that. When everyone else was walking across the Ayers Rock, yeah, I walked round, because, I don't know, it's good to see a thing, get a connection, see a thing without other people being there, like the Taj Mahal. Yeah. And then I hitched through Mount Isa. Yeah, I was carrying gallons of water at this point, because and I'd put little pots out with water in it, so the ants would go to the pots. Otherwise, you'd wake up, you'd be covered in ants, because they'd come for the water. You sweat. Yeah, but there was the pots. It meant they could drink and I could sleep. And then through Cairns, and then down again to Sydney, and again the bus, and then Melbourne, then across the Great Bight. And so that was another great tour. And I got to Perth, and I was told by a tourist information guy, that that in Hong Kong, this is when the Chinese New Year was happening. So, if you got there, everything's going to be closed. So I thought, okay, I'll have a look up the Western Desert. And there were two roads. And one went up through the middle on the map, and one round the outside. So I thought, I'll go up the middle, come down the outside. It's a plan. Very rarely have a plan, but when I do, should have asked the tourist guy. He would have said, don't be daft. So, yeah, that road on the map, it does exist. And I got a lift with a a guy who was delivering huge big water tanks. And as we're driving up this great big, through the middle of the Western Desert road, there were other vehicles. Not one. And, you know, like 5 hours we were driving together. And then he dropped me off near a windmill. And off he ran. I said to him before he dropped me off, you know, I haven't seen any cars. He said, no one else uses this road apart from me and a few other delivery guys. And I said, when will you be coming back? And he said, a couple of years' time, maybe. I think he was joking, but still. And so now I'm by a windmill pumping up water, so I've got water. And the red kangaroos were coming because they needed the water too. And so that was nice to be so close to red kangaroos, but yeah, probably dangerous. But, you know, I didn't hassle them, they didn't hassle me. It was all right. And then 2 teenage girls came like a mirage out of the distance. And they came over and they said, would you like to use our swimming pool? And I said, yeah. And they had a swimming pool because they're dragging so much water out of the aquifer underneath the Western Desert that these people had a swimming pool in their farm. And they asked me, and I stayed the night, and they said, okay, we've got you a lift back to the coastal road. Brilliant. I'd like to go see Monkey Mire. I'd heard about it by now. And they said, okay, this guy's going to pick you up and he'll take you there, and then you've got this lift all night. So, so I got in the car, got out of the car, and it's like, okay, this is a film set. They're making some kind of movie here. And I'm just hanging out with the guy that drove me there. And he said, here you are, there's your man, go and talk to him, he's the one. So I went over to this guy in a hat, and I said, hello, I'm Gary. Are you going to the coast? I'm trying to get a lift. And he said, yeah, I know, get in. I'm bringing all the film equipment in, I'm driving back empty. So I've okayed it, you can come along. And so I'm in this biplane. No, maybe it must have been a monoplane. Anyway, this plane, little rattly plane, seat for 2 people and a little bit of cargo. And we took off, and we flew over, what's it called? Mount something. The Western Desert is the biggest monolith. It's bigger than Ayers Rock, but it's got bushes on it. And they're making this movie. And I haven't seen it. I really ought to look that up 30 years later. Anyway, he took me to the coast. I hitchhiked an aeroplane. And then I went up Shark Bay was my next big adventure. And Shark Bay, but you know, it's a bay. I hadn't thought about it being called Shark Bay, but anyway, I might have only found about it afterwards. So I got my camera because I've been snorkeling quite a lot in Cairns, and I had one of the wind-on cameras. But I didn't have flips or anything because, you know, why would you have flips? It's too much to carry with my tent and my sleeping bag and all the other stuff. The net thing, I got rid of that, and the bed thing that floated me on the water of the tundra, that had all been gone. Hopefully it helped someone out. So I'm swimming, and it was great. It's like these underwater coral in like. So I swam from one to the next, and I was about, I don't know, a mile away from the shore. When this shark turned up, and I thought, oh, great, fantastic, how lucky am I? And so I took a picture, and this shark was swimming, maybe about 15 meters away, because I got a good picture of him. He's swimming by, no zoom, and it's winding on. Took another picture, and he's going around me. And on the third time he went around me, I realised he's going around me. Why is he going around me? And it was on my swim back. At this point, I was swimming not fast as I can, because that's a splashy thing. But yeah, after going around me 3 times, he then went off board. But you know, from this coral mound to the next coral mound, it was like 30 meters in between them on the way back. And then it got shallow enough, I felt safe. And I got back and I found this guy on the beach hiring out flips and masks and stuff. And I told him, I saw shark going around me. And he pulled up this flip and he said, yeah, we get shark attacks around here. They wait until you swim away from them and then they bite you. Well, they try to bite you if you're wearing flips. And then this flip had this great big chunk out of it. He said, the shark gets a mouthful of plastic, but you weren't wearing flips. He would have taken your foot off to the ankle for a small one. So that wouldn't have helped. Doing daft things. It's a good idea to ask first. I should have hired some flips. It would have helped. They weren't that much. I could have afforded it. And then Monkey Maya with Piccolo. So all the tourists come up from Perth. They must get the bus at like 4 o'clock in the morning or something. They get up and they feed the dolphins. The dolphins come in and the dolphins lark about like dolphins like to, doing all the sorts of tricks you see in dolphin shows, but actually just doing it because that's what dolphins do. They lark about, they jump and they bend and they do all sorts of stuff. And then the tourists left in their buses. And then there was just me and the guy that I'd hitchhiked with. Bucket bongs in the sea using a didgeridoo. How cool was that? He was a nice fella. And one of the several kind of lost people that picked me up and kind of want to join in with my travels, and I'm okay with them for one day, maybe 2 days in that case of that guy, or the guy that brought me back down from Anchorage down to the lower 50. We were together for like 5 or 6 days. But I worry about that I should be contributing to the petrol, and I don't know how much to contribute to the petrol. I don't know. Don't want to ask because maybe they hadn't thought about it. And I'm doing my own thing. If they're going to charge, I feel embarrassed, and I always want to think, okay, thanks for the lift. I don't want your lift anymore. I'd rather lift somebody else so I can chat to them. Because that's why I liked hitchhiking. People who pick you up are people that want to talk. Bad people. Stayed a couple of nights with a family in somewhere in Canada, and they had a swimming pool too. That was cool. I took the kids out to play card games. Arsehole was their game that we played in Chung Mansions. I took the kids. And then, so in the afternoon, when all the tourists have gone, the dolphins that don't come in for the food and they're larking about, they come in just to see the humans when it's quieting down. That's the ones that are there. And so I'm standing in the water and one of them comes round and she touches her fin onto my leg and she swims right around me, looking up at me. And I'm a little bit away from the other people. And it swam off and I talked to the Aborigine lady that was there. I hitchhiked with some Aborigines going past the sign that said, you're not allowed to go past this sign. And they were townies going to visit their relatives still living in the outback. And the place that the government had built them was full of cockroaches. Just a sea of cockroaches on the floor of this place. The cockroaches just eating this wooden structure and breeding, and the Aborigines were only coming into this structure because they didn't want to live with the cockroaches. They'd just come in to grab some wood to burn on the fire, and they all slept outside because it was cooler. And so I slept outside with them. No cockroaches outside. The government built them buildings. And then there was the petrol sniffers, which was the sad part of the Aborigines. They got real drug problems because, there's nothing much to do. And they kind of lost their culture in that way. And so lots of the guys turned to alcohol, drugs, but petrol sniffing is the cheapest one because they ain't got much money. And so you couldn't leave the petrol in your car in the outback because the petrol sniffers would siphon the petrol out, which nowadays is much more difficult. siphon the petrol out, and then they literally breathe it. And so I'm in this car with this second bunch, mad bunch of Aborigines, and I'm in the car with the rest of the guys, and there's a guy sitting on the bonnet pouring petrol into the engine, because they didn't put the petrol into the petrol tank. They had a big jerry can, and they'd just literally just pour it in as we're driving along. This guy sitting on the bonnet, well, laying down on the bonnet. And so yeah, I talked to this lady, really nice Aboriginal lady, because the ladies always seem to get their act more together. I think it's having kids that gets them to pull their act together. And she said, "Oh yes, that's Piccolo, she likes you." So I know the name of that dolphin. And the next day, after the tourists had left, I'm just swimming, I've got my camera with me. And a mother had brought a baby to come and see the crazy humans. And I know that because you don't swim with dolphins. The whole, "Ooh, let's go swim with dolphins." No, it doesn't happen. People chuck you in the water, the dolphins swim off. They're busy. Unless they're interested in you, then you're not swimming with dolphins. You're trying to keep up with them, and you can't. And so we got much better at Monkey Maya in the afternoon. This dolphin was swimming at 1/4 speed with her pup, the young dolphin. Only about so big, about a third the length of an adult. And yeah, and she'd come to see me. I was taking pictures of her while she and pup looking at me, because they'd come that close. And they weren't after food, because I wasn't feeding. They'd just come to see the crazy human swimming, something to do. And then I got to Hong Kong, and I loved it. And I stayed, and it was about a year and a half later. I got chunky mansions on the plane, just about to land. I asked the guy next to me, a Nepalese guy, really nice guy. I said, "Yeah, where's cheap to stay?" And he said, "Oh, Chunky Mansions." Okay, so I found my way to Chunky Mansions and Travellers Hostel, and I loved it so much. I really liked the camaraderie, and it was only after being there for a couple of years that they put a lock on my door, and that was so strange because I never had a lock on my door. There's a door, but no lock. And so anyone could have walked in and stolen my gear. But because we had Jimmy, who was a big black fellow who looked after the place, May, and Big Phil, who they sort of ran the place, and all the Filipinas that were there, and all the traveller types in this hostel. So there was about half of them were constantly there, and about half of them would be there for a couple of days and we'd gone. So that was half of them. Really enjoyed being there. Had a great time. I got to go to the nightclubs. They were playing 70s and 80s music during the 90s. I got there in 94, and yeah, so this trip was a different trip from the Pakistan-India hitchhiking across Europe with Nina trip. Because I went back to London and then started off again later. And yeah, it was just brilliant. Especially after we went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and we dressed up for it. Me, Jackie, Steve, Mun. I was with Mun for a while. I never went for the Chinese lasses at all. Nothing against them, but they weren't my cup of tea. And then one from Nottingham, mother was Chinese, father was Chinese. She turned up in Hong Kong working at Jackie's place, and post 97, Lang Kwai Fong, and she was my cup of tea. So it wasn't the look of a Chinese person that wasn't appealing to me. It's actually cultural. She'd eat congee though, which was a bit. I'd watch her eating congee, and then she'd watch me eating McDonald's, because that's all there was in '94 to eat that was Western food that wasn't expensive. And so that was fab, and Chunky Mansions was great. And on and off, I was there for 6 years. This hostel. And then eventually I did finish off my trip, and I did take the Trans-Manchurian train journey back. And if you're just sitting on the train looking out the window, it'll be the most boring journey you ever do. It's what, 5 days? Apart from the bit where we got out at Lake Baku and run down and jumped into the lake, soap, shampoo, then run back, and the horns going, get back in, we're leaving. That was brilliant fun. And if we had left without us, I haven't got a passport or anything. Just there in a pair of shorts and a towel and a shampoo. And that was brilliant. And I'd taken along, when I was in Taiwan, I saw someone go around the back with a whole bunch of McDonald's hats and chuck them in a bin, in a plastic bag. And I thought, have them. They'll be useful in the future. And then, so later on, I had them in this train, and I was selling them to the Russians, because the Russian was only just, it was before Russia opened up, before there was McDonald's, and these people wanted these hats, and I was selling them for like, the equivalent of $1 each. But it meant that it was so exciting to be at the at each train stop. I'd like pop myself out the door and wave the hat to go, who wants a McDonald's hat? It was brilliant fun. Selling hats to the Russians, made them happy. Recycling. It was for one place, it was in the bin. For another place, it was something they were willing to expend a day's wages on. I don't know, $1, maybe an hour's wages, I don't know. And in Moscow, I got accused. I was just like hanging around talking to the guys, young guys that sell things in Moscow. And a undercover cop, FSB, came along, and it was just in Russia, and it walked off. And I was like, what was that about? And the guys I was talking to, they said, yeah, you have to pay him in order to sell things in Red Square. He's the FFB that you have to pay to sell things here. He thought you were Russian. I said, oh, okay. And it was good. And then I got trains from there into Belarus, and changed train into Poland. And from Warsaw, I hitchhiked back. Oh, that was the trip where I hitched into Germany. I was in along down south in Germany, and the lorry I was in was following another lorry. He picked me up because he was tired, and he's following this up, tailgating this other lorry. And the other lorry had seen a parked lorry. It was like broken down or something. And so the other lorry could see it coming, and so my lorry swung out, trying to avoid the stationary lorry, but didn't have enough time. He didn't see it until the last minute. And so he swung, and the lorry impacted at the co-pilot, my side of the lorry. And the whole lorry crumpled up, because it's only millimetre thick steel, just like cars are. And it all crumpled up. Unfortunately, the lorry I was in had a sleeper cabin, and so it picked me up and put me on the sleeper cabin. And there was a whole load of blood. And when I came to, I was surrounded by a whole bunch of German lorry drivers, because they all stopped to help. And I just saw loads of blood. I thought I'd cashed in my chips. And I was saying, and I found out what happens in those situations to me. I went extremely English. I said, it's okay, chaps. I think the blood is mostly mine. I'm not sure if there's much we can do. And so I conked out again. And I woke up a few days later in the German hospital. And second time in the German hospital, Nina got an appendix problem as we hitchhiked out of Berlin, across East Germany, and Mr. and Mrs. Muller found us, who had camped overnight in amongst little copse of trees, in a roundabout in that case, and it was great, really nice. And Nina, when she woke up, she said, "Oh, I've got this bellyache. I think I'm going to fart. And I thought, okay, great, maybe we get out of the tent. And then later she said, oh, I think actually something's wrong. It's a really big pain. I was expecting a big fart. But anyway, we went searching for a doctor. And there were signposts saying doctor. The word's very close to English and German. And I followed it along, it was a vet. So we are sitting outside this vet, and I'm thinking, oh right, okay, there's no one about, and the vet isn't open, even though it's like 9 or 10 o'clock. Not sure what to do. And Mrs. Muller pulled up in her car, and she said, can I help? And so I explained the situation, she took us to hospital, and Nina, after many tests, with 4 or 5 nice German nurses popping in and going, oh, good news, she's not pregnant. Like, okay, great. That's what they could test for. And various different tests. And in the end, for an appendicitis, you just push one side, and then the pain's on the other side. And that's the only way they know there's appendicitis with all their technology. Mind you, this was nearly 30 years ago. And so yeah, she had an appendix taken out and spent 10 days, 12 days in the hospital. And I spent 10 or 12 days with Mr. and Mrs. Muller. They were great. They had cake for breakfast, which was a revelation to me. Really nice people. In Bayreuth, where Wagner does all the big Wagner things happen. And apparently I was not so gallant about this. And I was a bit unhappy that she was ill, and I wanted to keep going. I wanted to move. We'd only just, we were only like 10 days into our holiday, and I've got 10 days sitting down doing nothing. Anyway, so, yeah. So I was in another German hospital, having been in a lorry crash, and woke up. And yeah, my thumb was all a bit of a mess, and I got hit in the nose, but they'd fixed it all. And that's where the blood was. It wasn't anything serious, but you get a lot of blood without even being properly injured. And I remember just turning on the tap and listening to the sound of water, because, yeah, I thought I'd cashed in my chips, and the sound of water is quite wonderful. You only ever notice it when you've been in that kind of sort of situation where you don't think you're going to come out. Yeah, and they were nice people. And the German truck driver came along and asked me not to cause any trouble, him and his wife. I said, yeah, no problem, not causing trouble. Because he wasn't meant to pick up hitchhikers. And he showed me the newspaper report. We were in the newspaper because we'd jammed up one of the major motorways in south east Germany. Yeah, that was an experience. From there, I headed back. I exchanged letters with Carla. And yeah, then got to see my parents. My dad got me to stay in a place in Struve. Not nice, didn't want to stay there. And so me and Carla went to Leeds. That's when I spent 4 or 5 months living in Leeds and teaching in Bradford. So that was cool. So yeah, my 3 oceans tour of America, and the Atlantic to the Arctic to the Pacific, and my big 6 around Australia. And several goes into Europe and Ireland, but one looping through Eastern Europe. They were my big tours. Anyway, yeah, travelling. It is what it is. Everyone does it different. Everyone's got their own version. There's no right or wrong way. But it's good to see places. It's good to see them.